Break out the bikinis and flip-flops because FGO summer is nearly here. Hello everyone, SoberOni of G&A Reviews here, with a servant spotlight for the summer servant who finally answers that age-old question, can you really wear less clothes than Shuten? Consort Yu. We'll be examining her stats and skills, as well as going over pointers on how to utilize her effectively, and an overall grade comparing her to how she stacks up to the other 4-star servants. So if you're ready to practice your pole dancing, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe, and ring my bell, so you can catch all of these spotlight videos as they go up, and you can help out the channel. And now, onto Yu's stats. Summer Yu has a max HP of 11,245 and a max attack of 9,896, which becomes 10,390 due to her Lancer class modifier. Yu has very high attack for a 4-star Lancer, but unfortunately that is coupled with the lowest HP in her class. Although overall her HP is only slightly below average for a 4-star servant, and she packs high attack for her rarity. When it comes to her command cards, Yu has 3 hits on her quick card, 2 hits on her arts, 3 hits on her buster, and 4 hits on her extra card. She has an NP gain rate of 1.1% and a star rate of 12.2%. Despite her strong arts cards, Yu's natural NP gain is only about average due to her lack of arts cards in her deck. Her star generating is a little bit better though, due to her double quick cards and high hit count extra attack. Yu's stats are very offensively focused, but she does have some good utility as well. Taking a look at her skills, Yu's first skill is Summer Incarnated Spirit, rank A+. It grants her Guts 1 time, lasting for 5 turns, and reviving her with between 3,000 and 5,000 HP, depending on level. The skill also increases her own NP gain rate by 20% for 3 turns, and increases her NP gain by a further 10 to 20% if she's on a waterside or sunlight battlefield for 3 turns, both depending on level. Her second skill is Tyrant's Concubine, rank EX. This skill charges an ally's NP gauge between 10 and 20% depending on level, and it also casts Taunt on herself, lasting for 1 turn. And finally, her last skill is Dance of Days Past, rank EX. This skill increases her own quick card effectiveness for 3 turns between 10 and 20%, and it also increases the party's crit damage for 3 turns between 30 and 50%, both depending on level. As for her passives, Yu only has 1, and that's Magic Resistance rank B, which increases her debuff resist by 17.5%. Yu has a quick Buster deck with Quick Arts Buster, and a quick Noble Phantasm. Her Noble Phantasm is Anti-Fling Rondo, which is a single target quick attack that deals damage to one enemy with between a 1200% and 2000% damage modifier, depending on level. It also deals a bonus 150% extra damage to male enemies, and it inflicts Curse and Burn for 3 turns on the enemy, damaging them between 500 and 2500 per turn, depending on overcharge. Consort Yu will be this summer's welfare servant, so her ascension mat requirements are very easy and straightforward. For level ascension, she's just going to need 4 hair ornaments, all of which can be found in the event. For skill leveling though, she's going to require traditional ascension mats, 12 seashells, 8 bicorn horns, 20 bells, and 12 fruits of longevity per skill to be specific. Seashells can be farmed at the observatory in Babylonia with a 40% drop rate. Bicorn horns drop at the camping ground in Agartha, where they have a 21% drop rate. Bells have a 39% drop rate at the Bombman Cave in Lost Belt 3, and Fruits of Longevity are a new Olympus mat that drop at the East Interstellar City with a 20% drop rate. Summer has a long tradition of powerful welfare servants, whether it be Jolter from Summer 3 or even the most recent Saber Hokusai. So how well does Lancer Yu uphold that tradition? Well, I'm proud to say that Yu can use that spear for a lot more than just pole dancing. In fact, she may even be our best summer welfare servant yet, although you definitely couldn't tell just by looking at her stats. Indeed, other than her attack, none of her stats are particularly noteworthy. In fact, her low HP and quick buster deck may even make her appear underwhelming on paper. But as is the case with any good servant, Yu's skills are what carries her. Yu's first skill, Summer Incarnated Spirit, grants her Guts and increases her NP gain by 20%. If she happens to be on a waterside or sunlit battlefield, then Yu also gets another 20% NP gain for each. The additional NP gain, depending on field type, rarely comes into play, but it is worth mentioning that certain servants can change the battlefield to trigger these buffs. For example, Lancer Melt. Still though, the guts on this skill is pretty strong because it has a very long 5-turn uptime, so it is almost always active, and it revives you with quite a lot of HP. And while the initial 20% NP gain may seem low, it's deceptively good due to how strong Yu's arts card is, and the synergy that it has with Yu's other skill, namely her third skill, Dance of Days Past. Dance of Days Past is another modest steroid that provides you with a 20% buff to quick card effectiveness and a 50% bonus crit damage for the party. The quick buff is small, but it matches well with Yu's NP gain buff to give her better NP gain on her quick cards. So despite her NP gain seeming average or low on paper, it's actually surprisingly strong while both of these buffs are active, and it definitely enables her to be an NP spammer. Furthermore, the buff to crit damage being party-wide is tremendously useful. It gives you some utility as a semi-support in crit teams, since it can significantly increase the party's DPS, and as a decent star generator herself, you can even take full advantage of this buff without needing much outside help. Finally, Yu's second skill, Tyrant's Concubine, is a targeted NP battery that also taunts all enemies for 1 turn. It's important to note that the taunt will always be triggered on Yu herself, not the ally that she's targeting. Although for the most part, she'll be targeting herself anyway, since you'll really want to make use of that juicy NP charge. This skill helps Yu keep up with her NP spamming, but it can also come in clutch to save an ally. For example, in a boss fight, you can combine this taunt with Yu's guts to have her tank an enemy Noble Phantasm and protect a more vulnerable ally. These synergies and interactions between her skills give you a much more versatile playstyle than most other DPS servants have. That's why it's important to make sure that all of Yu's skills are leveled, so that you can use her effectively. But in terms of leveling order, go with Tyrant's Concubine first for that extra NP charge, followed by her quick buff for extra damage, and then her guts last. And other than mana loading, Yu's other append skills aren't really worth picking up, since most of her damage is going to come from her NP. And speaking of which, Yu's Noble Phantasm is a single target quick nuke that inflicts curse and burn and deals bonus damage against male enemies. Poor Tamamo Lancer being power crept by a welfare. I don't think I need to explain how strong an anti-male bonus modifier is, but I will anyway. This gives Lancer Yu a gigantic damage bonus against half of the servants in the game. Add on to that she's a free servant that you can get at NP5, and that she can easily NP spam or even NP loop in certain team comps, and you have a servant who likely will be the strongest Lancer DPS for most players. Lancer Yu is built to be an anti-male boss killer, and as I mentioned, her damage will outscale most other Lancers by a wide margin. But her NP isn't the only thing that makes Yu a powerful one-on-one servant. Her kit is also heavy in utility. Between her taunt, targeted NP charge, and strong guts, Lancer Yu has a lot of tools for handling tough challenge quests and tanking hard hits despite her low HP. Summer Yu isn't just limited to her NP for damage either. Her crit buff and good star generating also make a crit build viable for her, and in fact, consistent critting can even help her build NP charge, which enables a bit of a snowball effect on her. All of Yu's skills and abilities have really good synergy with each other, and they allow her to be one of the most consistent and versatile damage dealers among all of the SR servants. She does have one glaring weakness though, and that's that she's heavily dependent on that anti-male niche. Without that bonus damage, her kit is lacking in self-buffs, and her damage drops off considerably. For example, even as an NP5 servant, her Noble Phantasm damage is leagues behind Kagetora's against non-male enemies. As you'd expect with most quick servants, Yu loves teammates who can provide her with good NP charge or additional damage buffs to compensate for her underwhelming steroids. To that extent, servants like Atlante, Mosh, and Nero Bride are all good choices. Atlanta has an excellent quick buff that can help out Yu's damage against non-male enemies, and she's also an effective star generator, while Mosh and Nero are two supports capable of providing good NP charge, attack buffs, and some survivability for challenge quests. In crit teams, you're going to want to pair Yu with star generators who can also buff crit damage, like Brynn, Santa Nightingale, and Osakabe Hime. Brynn has a great crit buff that also increases star weight to help with consistency. Santa Nightingale not only provides crit buffs, but debuff removal and healing as well, and Osakabe Hime is best for pure damage, since she can buff Yu's crits and her NP damage. Summer Yu's Bond CE is cuddling up in the summer, and it buffs the quick card effectiveness of all allies by 10% and their crit damage by 15%. This Bond CE isn't really worth using over more direct damage alternatives, particularly ones that provide you with additional NP damage, like Traces of Christmas, Black Grail, or Imaginary Around. For crit builds, craft essences that buff crit damage, like Gem Magecraft, 3 Anglers, or Knight's Pride, are also good alternatives. In the future, you may also want to pick up the True Crimson Spear Trainer from the Land of Shadow events that drops later this year. It increases quick card effectiveness and quick card crit damage, as well as grants starting NP charge. As for command codes, anything that buffs crit damage is good, especially if it buffs quick crit damage, like Phantasmal Horse. Overall, Yu is an excellent addition to the Summer Welfare lineup. Just like her predecessors from the past few years, she is a 5-star servant in disguise, capable of delivering high amounts of burst damage through her anti-mail buff. She has excellent utility and defense for taking on difficult content, and plenty of flexibility in her build when it comes to being both a crit DPS and an NP spammer. Her only real drawback is just how much her damage falls off when she isn't facing male enemies. But thankfully, male enemies do make up a pretty decent portion of the game. So all in all, Lancer Yu gets an A from me. Much like Kagetora, she is a powerful NP spammer who will serve as a main damage dealer for many players, new and old. And those are my thoughts on Summer Yu. Easily a top tier welfare servant, but I think I speak for everyone when I say that the only thing more overwhelming than her firepower is that dynamite bikini. But what do you think? Let me know in the comments down below. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to leave a like and consider subscribing if you really enjoyed the video. Join the party over in our Discord, chill with us on Twitch, and follow us on Twitter, and I'll see you all in the next Servant Spotlight. Soberoni out. Later.